was to take us down off of here. But the other one, what did he do? He didn't make fun. What did he do? Demetria, do you remember?
What was the question?
There was 2 thieves that got crucified when Christ did. One of them had a change of heart. What did he ask Jesus to do?
To remember him when Jesus is in heaven.
And what was Jesus's response? Do you remember? Did he say, no, you've been a bad guy, I can't do that? What did Jesus do?
He said that he will remember him.
He did, didn't he? He told him that he would remember him. That shows us that nobody is too bad to be forgiven, right? Doesn't matter what we do, as long as we mean it in our hearts and we ask God to forgive us, that God says he will forgive us. Who were the 2 men that put Jesus in the tomb?
Nicodemus and Joseph.
You're right, Arimathea. And remember, Arimathea is just the name of a town. But they stuck that on there because back then, just like Mary was a very common name, a lot of the men were named Joseph. So they told us that in the Bible so we could tell the difference between him and another Joseph. Does anybody remember where we heard of Nicodemus the first time we heard of him? We've heard that name before. Does anybody remember where?
He was walking with God.
He was the one that said, what do I have to do to become a Christian?
No, he put Jesus in the tomb, I think.
He did put Jesus in the tomb, but who was given the other answer? Was that you, Keith?
Chess.
Chess. What did you say, Chess?
He said, he was the one that said, what do I have to do to become a follower of Jesus? And when he got Jesus's response, he walked away.
Do you remember that? Chess is exactly right. He came to Jesus in the middle of the night. Do you remember? He said, what do I have to do to be born again? And he's the one that said, do you mean I've got to go back into my mother's stomach to be born again? And he told him, no, that's not what I'm talking about. But you have to give up the way you're living now, and you have to be able to be willing to follow Jesus. What happened to the soldiers the night that Jesus rose from the dead?
The soldiers, they started shaking. Their shoes started shaking. That's all I know.
That's all you know. Anybody want to add to it? Yes, Keith.
And then when the angels came, they fainted.
They fainted.
Like almost like.
You know, the Bible tells us that the earth shook, and we compared it to maybe like an earthquake.
Oh yeah.
And when they woke up, they found that the body was missing. And did they want to go back and tell the governor that the body was missing?
No.
No, because they thought they would be blamed for letting somebody steal the body. So they came up with the plan. And what was their plan? What was the story they came up with?
So the body.
The lady was putting ointments on Jesus.
Okay, but what was the story they came up with so that people wouldn't think that Jesus had just come back from the dead? They made up a story. What was the story they made up? Remember, nobody wanted them to think, none of the religious leaders of that time wanted anybody to think that, hey, he really did come back from the dead, did they? So they told the soldiers, this is what you're going to tell them. you're going to tell them that somebody came during the night and stole his body. That's what he told the guards. So that was the story they were telling everybody. When the women came the next morning to prepare the body, what did the angel say to the women when they were looking inside the tomb?
Didn't Jesus promise you that he'll rise from the dead or resurrect?
All right. And Keith, you don't have to raise your hand, Shug. You can just say the answer because I might not see your hand, okay? So that's exactly what he said. He said, look, why are you looking here where the dead people would be at? Didn't he tell you he was going to rise from the dead? What proof did John find when he looked inside the tomb that Jesus was alive?
I know.
What was it, Solomon?
The napkin was not crumbled up. That means you're done. When it's folded, that means you're not done.
Okay, that's one of the things. But when John really didn't notice that napkin to start with, but when he walked in, it tells us that the bedclothes, the linens, the death linens, were just like a body had been in it. Okay, if somebody had stole the body, do you think they would have taken time to put the linens back in there? If you were going to steal the body and run, would you have taken the time to put the burial clothes back in the tomb? Or would you have just grabbed the body and kept going? Probably just grabbed it and took whatever was wrapped on it with you, right? But if you remember, the Bible tells us that when John walked in, that the form of Jesus's body was still in the clothes. The clothes were right there on the slab where they had lain him. And it was just like the body had disappeared from it, that the shape of the body was still in the burial clothes. When did Mary realize that the person that she was talking to in the garden was not the gardener?
Because what she thought was the gardener spoke of her name.
Okay, when Jesus said Mary, she recognized his name and she knew it was Jesus. She recognized his voice. We talked about two men after all this took place. There was two men walking to a little town called Emmaus. We called it the men on the road to Emmaus, and somebody walked up and started joining the conversation. Who joined them in the conversation?
Jesus.
Jesus did they recognize him?
No.
They just thought he was a stranger walking along the road with him, didn't they? And they didn't understand why he didn't know what was going on. I mean, this had been a big event in Jerusalem. The crucifixion had been a big event. And here, this person that they didn't recognize comes up and acts like he doesn't have a clue of what's happening. They wanted to know where he'd been at. When did they finally recognize who he was?
When he broke the bread and blessed it.
When he broke the bread and blessed it. When they said the blessing, they invited him home to eat with them. And when he blessed the food, the Bible tells us their eyes were open and he recognized who it was. If you remember, the story tells us that they got up and they ran back into Jerusalem to find the disciples and to tell them what they had just experienced. Why were the disciples and some of the other believers locked away in the upper room?
Because they were scared.
Why were they scared, Solomon?
Because Mary didn't see Jesus' body and they thought it was a ghost. They thought Jesus had risen as a ghost.
Well, why did they have the doors and the windows locked?
Because they thought if they were seen, they would be captured and locked in prison for killing the body.
Okay. I had to cut some light on. My house kept getting darker and darker. Okay, so they had all the windows and the doors locked because they were afraid that if people knew that they believed in Jesus, that they would come and do the same thing to them that had happened to Jesus. But all of a sudden, who was right there in the middle of them?
Jesus.
Jesus was. Were they scared?
No.
If your windows and doors had been locked and all of a sudden somebody appeared in the middle of the room, would you have been scared?
Yes.
I would. I'm not going to joke with you. I'd be scared. What did Jesus do to prove that he was not a ghost?
He asked for something to eat.
All right. Keith, what did he ask him to eat? Do you remember what he ate?
No, I don't remember what they ate.
It's okay. It's not important what he ate. It's just the fact that you remember that he asked for something to eat. But the Bible tells us he ate fish and honey. And the only important part about that was that's what they ate all the time. So he was asking for the same thing that the disciples would have eaten, which showed that he wasn't a ghost, because the ghosts eat. Would
No.
ghosts be able to eat food?
No, they wouldn't.
No, I don't think so. I don't believe in ghosts, but I don't think a ghost would have been able to eat food. All right. Now that everybody that's probably coming is with us, does anybody else have a prayer request that they want to give us before we move on? I've got Solomon's. Ashlyn's grandmother came through the surgery. Okay, she's still in the hospital. She'll probably be there several more days. Y'all just keep her in your prayers as the healing process starts. I have a prayer request, guys. I have to do something that I'm not comfortable doing. You know how sometimes somebody will ask you to do something and we say it's out of our comfort zone. It's just not something we really like to do. Well, I can stand in front of y'all in the classroom and teach all day, and that doesn't bother me. I can get up here and talk to you, and that's okay, because I like seeing your pretty faces. Miss Smith does not like being in a video. And I have got to make a video and post it on YouTube so that when you can't get online with us, you have something you can go back and look at, okay? And I'll be honest with you, it terrifies me. I don't want to do it. I'm not somebody that's comfortable with doing it, and I'm going to have to do it anyway. So I'm just going to ask y'all that when you're saying your prayers that you remember Miss Smith, because I'm having to do something that I'm not comfortable doing, okay? And I don't want to get up there and mess it up and it be worse than if I hadn't done it at all. So can you remember me in your prayers? All right, let's bow our heads and have our prayer this morning, okay? Thank you, Jesus, for all that you give us and for what you do for us, Lord. Lord, thank you for being the awesome God that you are. Lord, thank you for keeping our family safe during this pandemic, Lord. Lord, we just pray that you will get everyone's attention, Lord, that you are God and that you have a message that you want to be heard, Lord, and just help us to turn our nation back to you, Lord, and just to rely on you for the things that we need. Lord, we pray that you'll continue to watch over our family and our friends, that you'll keep us safe, Lord, that those that are sick, that you'll make them heal quickly, Lord, that you'll be with those that are taking care of them, that you'll keep them safe. Lord, I pray that you'll give me the courage to do what's being asked of me to do, Lord. Lord, just be with us in this time that we're together this morning. Help us to enjoy each other's company and to answer any questions we might have, Lord, and just to enjoy having class together. We love you. We praise you. We ask these things in your name. All right. Let's start with language this morning. You got your language book close by? Turn to page 227. If you remember, I told you, I think it was Friday when we got together, we kind of skipped through the dictionary part because I wasn't sure who had dictionaries and who didn't. But the main things we needed to remember about using the dictionary is that's what people used before they had Google, right? But everybody knows where the dictionaries were in our classroom. Remember, the words at the top of the page are called what? Who remembers?
Headings. Guide words.
Guide words. Good job. And the first word, when you're looking at the words on the page, the word in the dark print has a special name. What's that word called?
Heading? No.
No, it's not a heading. That's in the encyclopedia.
It's nothing.
Hold your place and flip back over to page 216. All right, at the very top, we've got two words. They're our guide words. Remember, the first word is the first word on the page, and the second word would be the last word on the page. And then we've got the words in alphabetical order, and each word on this dictionary page, they're in blue. That blue word is called what kind of word?
Entry word.
The entry word. Good job. So we have the entry word, which tells us which word we're looking at. What do we call it? What do we call it when it tells us how to say it? Anybody remember? It has those accent marks and the long and short vowel sounds. It's telling us how to do what to the word?
Pronounce it.
How to pronounce it. So we call that the pronunciation of the word. It also tells us the parts of speech. Sometimes it'll give us a sentence, telling us how to use the word. Some of the other things that it might tell us, you may have a dictionary. There are lots of different kinds of dictionaries. Some kind of dictionaries actually tell you where that word originates from. Who can tell me what originate means? If I ask you what the origin of a word is, what do you think I'm asking? Anybody know? What does original mean? Keith, what's original mean?
Like from the beginning.
The beginning, where it starts from? Originate means where did that word come from? So some dictionaries, if you get what they call a collegiate dictionary, which means it has lots of information in it, if you have a dictionary like that, it may actually tell you where that word first started at. All right, let's turn to page 227 and let's look in the green box. All right, what is a noun?
I don't have page 220. Names. I only have page 200. Person, place, or thing, or an idea.
Person, place, or thing. Okay, how about a verb?
So, or state, or being, of being.
So who can tell me what that means? I know that you're reading it out of the book, but can you explain it to me?
I'm not using it.
All right, We learned them two ways in the classroom. We talked about action words, which are verbs like run, talk, wiggle, jump, and then we talked about the words that were on the chart, right? That's what we called them, the words on the chart. They were either state of being verbs like am, is, are, was, were, being, be, being, remember those? Or it was your helping verbs like have, he could have finished early, had, has. Those are helping words, which mean they may show up with an action verb. All right, what's a pronoun? Some of us still get confused with our pronouns. What's a pronoun?
It takes the place of a noun.
It's what?
Takes the place of a noun.
It takes the place of a noun. How about an adjective? Adjectives only describe what?
Nouns and pronouns.
Nouns and pronouns.
They only describe nouns and pronouns. That's right. How about adverbs?
Describe verbs, adjectives, and adverbs.
That's probably the hardest ones, isn't it? Because it can describe three different things. It can describe a verb. It can describe an adjective, or it can describe another adverb. All right, then the prepositions. Guys, prepositions was that big yellow chart that I told you that you needed to either memorize it or look at it enough that you recognize it when you see it in a sentence. If we had been at school, we would have been memorizing them. It shows relationships between a group of words. Like the dog is under the house. Where's the dog in relationship to the house?
Under.
Under the house. Remember, a preposition is never in a sentence by itself. It never appears in a sentence by itself. It's always part of a what? Prepositional phrase. And I told you the easiest way to find prepositional phrases was to look at your sentence, take your pencil and go through and put a line under all the prepositions that you see in that sentence. Then your phrase is going to begin in front of the preposition, and it's going to end behind the noun that follows that preposition. So if my phrase was under the house, under is a preposition. What's the noun that follows it? House, right? Because the was an adjective. Remember, an, a, and the are always adjectives. So under the house, under is a preposition. House is going to be the object. That's telling us what it's under. Conjunctions, we talked about those early on in the year, but we just called them something different. We called them connecting words. Do you remember that? Conjunctions are going to be the words that join a group of words together, and the conjunctions were and, or, nor, or, but, yet, for. You remember those words? That's our conjunctions. And then the interjections. Interject means to stick in. So an interjection is just a word you stick in there to show emotion or sudden feeling. If you see if a girl sees a spider and they say, ah, a spider, well, the part is their interjection. They're showing they don't like the spider, okay?
The spider.
Or if you see, Miss Brain's still asleep this morning too. If you see a snake in the road and you say, wow, look at that snake. Wow is your what? Your interjection, because I doubt you're going to say, wow, look at that snake. You think you're going to say that if you see this huge snake in the road?
Probably not.
Probably don't have a little emotion with it. All right, so let's look at remember A. Who wants to do number 1 for us? And we'll fill in our blanks as we go along. And if you've had a chance to look at your lessons for today, you'll know that this was part of your lesson today anyway. So guess what? We're going to do it together. Okay? Who wants to do number 1 for us?
227.
All right, Demetria.
Nouns can be common or proper.
That's correct. Everybody write proper on the line. Keith, you want to try number 2 for us?
Yes, ma'am. Am and is are being verbs.
They are. They're being or state of being verbs. Very good. Anna Thomas, number 3.
Shall and will are helping verbs.
Good job. Number 4, Grace.
Okay, hold on.
Okay.
Miss Smith.
Read,
Hold on a minute. Okay, Grace.
read and run are action verbs.
Action verbs. Good job. What's your question, Solomon?
I already did this whole page.
Okay, so check your answers while we're going.
Me too. I also did it all too.
Chess,
Too.
how about number 4? Wait a minute, that's the one we just did. Chester, number 5.
Many adverbs end in ly.
Good job. Number 6, Elijah.
The questions that an adjective answers are which one, what kind, who, how many.
Okay, which one, what kind, how many, how much, and whose. Remember, there's 5 of them. All right, Demetria, do number 7 for us.
The question that an adverb answers are when, where, how often, and to what extent.
Good job. Number 8, Solomon. We can't hear you, Solomon. You got your,
They muted.
I didn't get that one.
you didn't get that one?
Yeah.
Okay, Chess, do number 8 for us.
The word in, I also didn't get this one, but I think I have it. I don't know.
Okay,
The word in must have an adverb if it's a prepositional, if it's a preposition. If it doesn't have one, then it's a verb.
good guess. Not right, but good guess. If the word is in, it must have what to be an to be a preposition.
Object.
It's got to have an object. Good job. If it doesn't have an object, then it's going to be what?
It's just gonna be a noun.
If it doesn't have an object, it's going to be an adverb. In must have an object if it's a preposition. If it does not have one, then it's going to be an adverb. And number 9, Brooklyn, do number 9 for me.
The most common conjunctions are and, but, or, nor, for, and yet.
Good job. All right, let's look at Think B. Just underline the verbs 2 times and the subject once, and then we're going to tell what the adjectives and the adverbs modify. So let's look at sentence number 1. What is, read the sentence and then tell me what the verb is, Chess.
My mom can sing very beautifully. And the verb is can sing.
Good job. Brooke, what's the noun in that? What's the subject in that sentence?
Mom.
Good job. Do you see an adjective that describes mom?
Mom.
And Let's see, Anna Thomas, do you see an adverb that describes can sing?
Beautiful is very described. Beautiful.
Beautifully modifies can sing. What tells us what adverb is going to describe beautifully?
Very.
Very. Good job. Get your piece of paper out just a minute and diagram that sentence for me, and let's see how many of you get it right.
Already diagrammed it.
All right, when I see everybody's pretty face, I'll show the answer and see if you got it right.
I already diagrammed all of them.
All right, is that what you got? All right. What you need to remember is the shelf comes down if it's describing the adverb or if it's describing an adjective, okay? If it's describing the verb, it's going to come straight out. So beautifully told us how it can sing, but very told us how beautifully it was. All right, let's look at number 2. Jimmy carefully climbed down. Brooklyn, what's the verb in that sentence?
Fine.
Climbed. And what's the subject? Jimmy. How did Jimmy climb down?
Carefully.
He climbed down carefully. And where did he climb?
Down.
So in this sentence, we got 2 words that are going to be modified. It's going to tell us how we climb, and where we climb. Okay? All right, let's look at number 3. 5 happy campers hiked cheerfully. Happy campers. What is the verb, Jess?
The verb is campers.
Are you sure? What's the verb?
Hiked.
Hiked. Okay. And what is the subject? What's the subject, Elijah?
Campers.
Campers. Now, what are the adjectives that describe campers? Keith?
What? The 5 happy.
Good job. And we have one adverb that describes hiked, and that word is what?
Carefully.
Cheerfully. Good job. Look at number 4. Will he be here tomorrow? What is the verb in this sentence, Grace?
Be here.
Are you sure?
Will be.
Will be. It's a verb phrase this time. And what's the subject? Who or what's the subject? He. And what is the adverb going to be?
Here tomorrow.
Here tomorrow. Okay. Let's look at page 228. Right, I want to skip down to think F. I think part of your assignment was think C, but I'm gonna let you do that. I want to skip down to think F. Number 1 says, our dog likes sleeping inside the house, but father wants King kept outside. Who can tell me what the prepositional phrase is in that sentence? You know, Keith?
What was the question again?
What's the prepositional phrase in that first sentence? Our dog likes sleeping inside the house, but father wants King kept outside. Don't know? It's okay. Solomon?
It's more than one prepositional phrase, I think. I think the first one is inside the house, and then I think the next one after that is
Actually, it's only one prepositional phrase in that sentence. You
well,
look for the preposition's inside, and what's the noun that follows inside? House. So your parentheses, the first one would be in front of the word inside. And the second one, or what we call the closing parentheses, would be after house.
What was that?
Wait,
Oh, no, somebody's is echo.
why can't I hear myself?
Okay, let's look at number 2. Have you ever pushed a car up a steep hill? Brooklyn, can you tell me what the prepositional phrase is? You disappeared. Unmute, Brooklyn, so we can hear you. Okay.
Wait.
Do you know what the prepositional phrase is for number 2?
Brooklyn had muted. No one is.
Jess, do you know what the prepositional phrase is?
Have, and then you ever pushed a car? Is that the end of the preposition?
What's the preposition in that sentence?
Have?
No, that's a verb.
Ever?
Grace, what's the preposition?
Up a steep hill.
Up a steep hill is the prepositional phrase. Up is your preposition. So your opening parentheses is going to be in front of up. And the noun that follows up is hill. So your closing parentheses would be after hill.
Okay.
All right, let's try one more together, okay? Anna Thomas, try number 3 for us. You want to help her out, Chess?
Is it on? On?
On is the preposition, so what is the phrase?
It's on my desk.
That's correct. So you open it up in front of on, and then you close it behind desk. All right, everybody stand up where you're at. Right there where you're at. Stand up. Reach all the way up to the ceiling. Stretch, 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 stretch. Oh my goodness, keep it grown tall. Don't fall, Keith. All right. Let's look at math for a few minutes. I think part of the problem with the reception is the weather. Get out a piece of paper, and I'm going to tell you what to write down for math. I want you to write this on the piece of paper.
16 divided by 2. Is that 16 divided by 2, Miss Smith?
It's y minus 3 equals 16 divided by 2.
16 divided by 2.
Divided by 2? Can you say it again?
Y minus 3 equals 16 divided by 2.
Do we start on it?
Yep.
I don't understand the third step, like where you write all those numbers.
Okay. Well, do you know where to start at? Solomon,
yeah.
you know where to start at?
Yeah, I already did it. 3 minus 4, y minus 3 equals 8. But after that, I don't know.
Okay. That's a good start.
I did it.
Okay, Solomon said it would be y minus 3 equals 8. Where'd you get the 8 from, Solomon?
I got 8 from dividing 16 divided by 2.
That's good. Now, remember I told you it was just like when you have a measuring balance, okay? If we do it on one side, we've got to do it on the other side so it stays equal on both sides. So to get rid of that 3, I'm going to say y minus 3 plus 3. And then if I add 3 on the left side, then I've got to add 3 on the right side. So you should have y minus 3 plus 3 equals 8 plus 3.
Minus 3 equals 8. 16 divided by 2 equals 8. Boom. I did it. And the check.
All right. So what's y going to equal?
Y equals 11.
Y is 11. Now, we can't just leave it like that. You've got to put it back up there in the original equation to see if it works. So put 11 minus 3 equals 16 divided by 2. What's 11 minus 3?
8. And 16 divided by 2 is 8.
So, was your answer correct?
Yes.
It should look like that.
Got it.
All right, let's see if you can do this one. B, like boy, B plus 5 equals 15 minus 6. B plus 5 equals 15 minus 6.
Oh, that's easy.
Did it.
All right, Chess, what did you get for B?
What a B equals 4.
That's correct. Let's see if it works. Put it back in your equation. Did it work out?
Mm-hmm.
Is that what you got?
Yeah,
Wow.
I did.
Now, the reason I made sure that we used a Y and a B today was because I wanted you to see that the letter of the alphabet does not matter. When you do algebra, when you get into middle school and high school, when you start doing algebra, that just means there's a variable. There's a number that's missing that you've got to figure out what it is. And that letter of the alphabet stands for that missing number. So it doesn't matter what the number is, what the letter is you use, it still means that's the number that's going to be missing. So lots of times people use N, but especially when you get in high school, you'll see it's X and Y a lot. Instead of N, they'll use the letter X. All right, so on page 259,
You're welcome.
in your math book,
You too.
259.
page 259, you're going to do number 1, A, B, and C, and then you're going to skip down to number 4. Now, some of us are still missing this on test, and guys, we should be getting this by now, okay? Get your piece of paper back out. Miss Smith's gonna help you write it down so maybe you'll remember it. Give me just a minute to write it down. All right, do you remember when we started out with these prefixes when we first started doing the metric system? And I told you that the prefixes would be the same. It doesn't matter if we're talking about liters or meters or grams. The prefix would be the same, okay? When you have deci, who can tell me what deci stands for?
100. 1,000.
110.
100.
1/10. Right. We've been doing this since way back before Christmas, 1/10. Okay? The only thing we have added to it new is if you write that with the decimal, it's going to look like that. You see my paper? Remember I showed you when we started doing decimals, hold on a minute. All right, when we're doing the number line, remember we always start with our ones, and we go ones, tens, hundreds, thousands. All right, when we do decimals, we're getting smaller and smaller. So the decimal would come behind ones or in front of ones, whichever way you want to say it, okay? And because 1 is the first one that's a whole, we're not going to have any ones on the decimal side. The first thing we would have would be the tenths. Okay? Then we'd have the hundredths and the thousandths. So we've got our ones, our tens, our hundreds, our thousands. And on this side, we've got our tenths, our hundredths, and our thousandths. All right. If I wanted to write 1/10 as a decimal and a 1, that's the same thing as saying 1/10. Okay? One hundredth would be a decimal, a 0, and a 1, because I've got to have, goes to the second place. See, the hundredths was in that second spot. But you can't just leave a blank space there. And what do we always use as our space holders?
A 0.
A 0. Multiplication, division, we always use a 0 to hold our space. So to write 100 in decimals, we would have a 0 and a 1. So if the thousandths is in the third place, how many space holders are we going to have?
3.
You're going to have 3 places, but you're going to have 2 space holders. You see? The decimal 001, that's 1,000. Okay? Now, who can tell me what a mix, if we write mixed numbers, give me an example of a mixed number.
2 3/5.
Okay, 2 3/10. That would be a mixed number. Okay? But if I wanted to write that as a decimal, then it would be 2.3. Still a mixed number, but instead of writing it with a fraction, I'm writing it with a decimal now. As long as you keep your decimal places lined up, then your answers will come out correctly. All right?
So Ms. Smith, it's kind of like the 10 is like a decimal.
It is. It's kind of like that. So when y'all do number 4, be careful. Remember, mm is a millimeter, and that's the same as saying what? Is it 1/10, 100th, or 1,000? A millimeter. 1,000. DAM is a decameter. Deca means what?
10.
10, good. DM is a decimeter. Decimeter is what?
1/10.
1/10. CM is a centimeter. A centimeter is
100.
100. And KM is a kilometer. Kilometer is what?
1,000.
1,000.
It's 1,000. Good job. All right, so for your math today, you've got 1, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. No division.
6, 7,
On 7, you only have to do A and B. Just your 3-digit multiplication.
Did I do something? Miss Smith,
Yes,
didn't you say that we were graduating on the 15th?
we finished school on the, I think Miss Judy said on the 15th, yes.
I don't know if we graduated or not.
What?
How do we know if we graduated or not?
Because I don't have anybody in my class that's failing their grade.
Oh,
That make you feel better?
yes.
Okay. All right, y'all get your reading book out and turn to page 42.
I don't know what my reading book is.
Smith, I don't know how this happened, but I have
Okay.
I have 2 of these books. I have 2 of these.
Uh-oh. Well, that's okay.
Dun, 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 dun.
One of them was probably mine.
Page 32.
Page 42. Now, because the weather's bad and it's kind of hard to hear each other, I'm gonna ask you to mute your mic. And when I call on you to read, then you can unmute, and that way we'll just be hearing one person read, okay?
Miss Smith, I don't know how to mute my mic.
You what?
I don't know how to mute my mic. I can grab.
If you don't know how to do it, that's fine, Keith.
Right there where it says mute. Keith, if you'll put your mouse on the screen, and it'll bring a row across the very bottom, and at the bottom left, it'll say the word mute, and you just click on it. When you click on it, it mutes. And then to unmute yourself, you'll click that same button again.
You got it, Keith? Give me a thumbs up if you understand. All right. Demetria, how about you start reading for us, and we'll do like we did the other day. Miss Smith will start it, then I'm gonna let Demetria read. She's gonna read and she's gonna call on somebody else, okay? When she calls on you, you need to unmute so we can hear you read. We're on page 42. Wilbur the pig lives on Zuckerman's farm with the other animals and Lurvy the farmhand. But even with regular visits from the Zuckerman's niece Fern, Wilbur longs for a friend until one rainy day he has an interesting surprise. Okay, Demetria.
I don't know where my book is.
You don't know where your book is?
Mm-mm.
Okay, Chess, you want to start for us?
Okay. The next day was rainy and dark. Rain fell on the roof of the barn and dripped steadily from the eaves. Rain fell on the barnyard and ran in crooked courses down into the lane where thistles and pigweed grew. Rain splattered against Mrs. Zuckerman's kitchen windows and came gushing out of the downspouts. Keith?
Unmute, Keith, so we can hear you. Okay.
Okay. Rain fell on the backs of the sheep as they grazed in the meadow. When the sheep tired of standing in the rain, they walked slowly up the lane and into the fold. Rain upset Wilbur's plans. Wilbur had planned to go out this day and dig a new hole in his yard. He had other plans too. His plans for the day went something like this: breakfast at 7, crust and middling bits of donuts, wheat cakes with drops of maple syrup sticking to them. Elijah. Potato skins, leftover custard pudding with raisins and bits of shredded wheat. Breakfast would be finished at 7. From 7 to 8, Bobo planned to have a talk with Templeton,
Templeton.
the rat that lived under the
Trough.
talking with the Templeton was not the most interesting occupation in the world, but it was better than nothing. From 8 to 9, Bobo planned to take a nap outdoors in the sun. From 9 to 11, he planned to dig a hole or trench and possibly find something good to eat in the day. Brooklyn.
Who'd you call on, Elijah?
Brooklyn.
Solomon, read for us.
He said Brooklyn.
Oh, I'm sorry. Brooklyn, read for us.
No, because I page split. Miss Smith, I don't know where we are because my page flipped.
Okay, Solomon, do you know where we're at? Solomon, you know where we're at?
Yes, I do.
Okay, you read and then you can crawl on Brooklyn when you stop.
From 11 to 12, he planned to stay still and watch flies on the boards, watch bees in the clovers, and watch swallows in the air. 12 o'clock, lunchtime, mountlings, warm water, apple parings, meat gravings, carrot scrapings, meat scraps, stale hornings,
Harmony.
and the wrapper of a package of cheese. Lunch would be over at 1, from 1 to 2. Wilford planned to sleep from 2 to 3. He planned to scratch 2 places and by rubbing against the fence. Oh, Brooklyn.
From 3 to 4, he planned to stand perfectly still and think of what it was like to be alive and to wait for Fern. At 4, with some supper, skim milk, provender, leftover sandwich from Lurvy's lunchbox, prune skins, a morsel of this, a bit of that, fried potatoes, marmalade drippings, a little more of this, a little more of that, piece of baked apple, a scrap of upside down cake. Wilbur had gone to sleep thinking about these plans. He awoke at 6 and saw the rain, and it seemed as though he couldn't bear it. Brooke.
I get everything all beautifully planned out, and it has to go and rain, he said. For a while he stood gloomily indoors, then he walked to the door to look out. Drops of rain struck his face. This yard was cold and wet. His trough had an inch of rainwater in it. Templeton was nowhere to be seen. "Are you out there, Templeton?" called Wilbur. There was no answer. Suddenly Wilbur felt lonely and friendless. One day, just like another, he groaned, "I am very young. I have no real friend here in the barn. It's going to rain all morning and all afternoon, and Fern won't come in such a bad weather." Chess.
Go.
Honest, honestly, honestly, and Wilbur was crying again for the second time in 2 days. At 6:30, Wilbur heard the banging of a pail. Lurvy was standing outside in the rain, stirring up breakfast. "Come on, pigs," said Lurvy. Wilbur did not budge. Lurvy dumped the slop, scrapped the pail, and walked away. He noticed that something was wrong with the pig. Wilbur didn't want food. He wanted love. He wanted a friend, someone who would play with him. He mentioned this to Goose, who was sitting quietly in a corner of the sheepfold. "Will you come over and play with me?" he asked. "Sorry, Sonny, sorry," said the goose. "I'm sitting on my eggs. 8 of them. I gotta keep them toasty warm." Keith.
Keith,
I lost my page.
okay. We are on page 45. Look where it says sorry, sorry, sorry. You can start there.
Oh, okay. Said the goose. "I'm sitting on my eggs. 8 of them. Got to keep them TSTS warm. I have to stay right here so I'm not Liberty Gibbet. I do not play when there are eggs to hatch. I'm expecting goslings." "Well, I didn't think you were expecting woodpeckers," said Wilbur, Wilbur next fried one of the lambs. "Will you please play with me?" he asked. "Certainly not," said the lamb. "In the first place, I cannot get into your pen, as I am not old enough to jump over the fence." "In the second place, I'm not interested in pigs. Pigs mean less than nothing to me." "What do you mean less than nothing?" replied Wilbur. "I don't think there is any such a thing as less than nothing. Nothing is absolutely nothingness. It's the lowest you can go. It's the end of the line. How can something be less than nothing? If there were something less than nothing, then nothing would be not be nothing. It would be something, even though it's just a very little bit of something. But if nothing is nothing, then nothing has nothing. That is less than it is." "Oh, be quiet," said the lamb. "Play by yourself. I don't play with pigs." Sadly, Wilbur laid down and listened to the rain. Soon he saw the rat climbing down a slanting board. Grace.
Will you play with me simply
as we'll play, said Timothy, twirling his whiskers. Play? I hardly know the meaning of the word. Well, said Wilbur, it means to have fun, to forklift, to run and skip and make merry. I never do those things if I can avoid them, replied the rat sourly. I prefer to spend my time eating, growing and spying and hiding. I am gluten, but not a merry maker. Right now I am on my way to your trough to eat your breakfast, since you haven't got sense enough to eat it yourself. And simply the rat crept
Stealthily,
selfless,
stealthily.
stealthily along the wall and stealthily along the wall and disappeared into a private tunnel that he had dug between the door and the through in Wilbert's yard. Anna Thomas.
When you say tic-tac-toe, is that like 3 in a row?
Templeton was a crafty rat, and he had things pretty much his own way. The tunnel was an example of his skill and cunning. The tunnel enabled him to get from the barn to his hiding place under the pig through without coming out into the open. He had tunnels and runways all over Mr. Zuckerman's farm and could get from one place to another without being seen. Usually he slept during the daytime and was abroad only after dark. Wilbur watched him disappear into the tunnel in a moment. He saw the rat's sharp nose poke out from underneath the wooden
You got one for my mom.
cautiously. Templeton pulled himself up over the edge of the trough.
I miss you too. Okay, you too.
Okay, guys, that word is trough. That's like a pig trough. It's where they put the pig food at. When I was growing up and we had pigs, we call it, that's where we put the slops at, the pig trough. Okay, who's reading now?
Solomon.
Solomon? Can't hear you, Solomon. Solomon, we can't hear you. There we go.
This was almost more than Wilbur could stand on the dreadful rainy day to see his breakfast being eaten by someone else. He knew Templeton was getting soaked out there in the pouring rain, but even that didn't comfort him. Friendless, dejected, and hungry, he threw himself down in the manger,
That's manure.
and sobbed. Late that afternoon, Lurvy went to Mr. Zuckerman. I think there's something wrong with that pig of yours. He hasn't touched his food. Gave him 2 spoonfuls of sulfur and a little are they making this stuff up?
No, molasses.
Molasses. Brooke.
Brooke, do you see where we're at, Shug?
Yes.
Okay.
Wilbur couldn't believe what was happening to him. Then
Lurvy.
Lurvy caught him and forced the medicine down his throat. This was certainly the worst day of his life. He didn't know whether he could endure the awful loneliness anymore. Darkness settled over everything. Soon there were only shadows and noises of the sheep chewing their cuds, and occasionally the rattle of the cow's chain up overhead. You could imagine Wilbur's surprise. Out of the darkness came a small voice he had never heard before. It sounded rather thin and pleasant. Brooklyn. Brooklyn.
Okay, hold on. Yes, Mike.
Because you're listening to God. I'm not gonna be angry. Don't stop messing with God.
Wait, Miss Smith, are we on page 47?
No, we're on page 49.
Oh, and then we are.
Page 49, go down almost to where it says Charlotte. It says, do you want a friend, Wilbur?
Wait, where were you? My dog accidentally clicked the not speak button.
Okay, go back. Do you see Charlotte down towards the bottom of page 49?
Yeah. Oh, that,
Okay.
okay. The night seems long. Wait, the night seemed long. Wilbur's stomach was empty, and his mind was full. And when your stomach is empty, and your mind is full, it's always hard to sleep. A dozen times during the night, Wilbur woke and stared into the blackness, listening to the sounds and trying to figure out what time it was. A barn is never perfectly quiet. Even at midnight, there is usually something stirring. The first time he woke and he heard Templeton gnawing a hole in the grain bin. Templeton's teeth scraped loudly against the wood and made quite a racket. That crazy rat, thought Wilbur. Why does he have to stay up all night grinding his clashers and destroying people's property? Why can't he go to sleep like any decent animal? The second time Wilbur woke, he heard the goose turning on her nest and chuckling to herself. What time is it? Whispered Wilbur to the goose. To Demetria.
She doesn't have a book, I don't think.
Then Grace.
Thing on my mind, said Wilbur. Well, said the goose, that's not my trouble. I have nothing at all on my mind, but I've too many things under my behind. Have you ever tried to while sitting on 8 eggs? Never, Wilbur. I suppose it is uncomfortable. How long does it take a goose egg to hatch? Approximately 30 days. Also answered the goose, but I cheat a little. On warm afternoons, I just put a little straw over the eggs and go out for a walk. Keith.
Keith, unblock your mic so we can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
But
Read for us, Keith.
but I cheat a little.
Go down to the, yeah, that'll be a good place.
But I cheat a little. On warm afternoons, I just pulled a little straw over the eggs and go out for a walk. Bubble yawned and went back to sleep. In his dream, he heard again the voice saying, "I'll be friend to you. Go to sleep. You'll see me in the morning, half an hour before dawn." Bubble woke and listened. The barn was still dark. The sheep lay motionless. Even the goose was quiet. Overhead, on the main floor, nothing stirred. The cows were resting. The horses dozed. Templeton had quiet work and gone off somewhere on an errand. The only sound was a light scraping noise from the rooftop where the weather vane. Solomon.
Solomon, we can't hear you.
Swam back and forth. The river of the barn. When it was like this, calm and quiet, waiting for light. Day is almost here. He thought through a small window, a faint gleam appeared. One by one, the stars went out. Wilbur could see the goose a few feet away. She sat with her head tucked under a wing. Then he could see the sheep and the lamb. The sky lightened. Oh, beautiful day it is here at last. Today I shall find my friend. Wilbur looked everywhere. He searched his pen thoroughly. He exclaimed the window, examined the window ledges, stared up at the ceiling, but he saw nothing new. Elijah.
He hated to break the lovely stillness of dawn by using his voice, but he couldn't think of any other way to locate my mysterious new friend.
Mysterious
New friend who
I love morning.
was nowhere to be seen. So Wilbur cleared his throat. "Attention, please," he said in a loud, firm voice. Will the party who addressed me at bedtime last night kindly make himself or herself known by giving an
Appropriate.
appropriate sign or signal? Wilbur paused and listened. All the other animals lifted their heads and stared at him. Wilbur blushed, but he was determined to get in touch with his unknown friend. Attention, please, he said. I will repeat the message. Will the party who addressed me at bedtime last night kindly speak up? Please tell me where you are if you are my friend. The sheep looked at each other in disgust. Stop your nonsense, Wilbur, said the oldest sheep, Grace.
I think she's gone to sleep on us. Look, let's stop right there for today. Has anybody got any questions before we sign off for this morning? No?
Mom, do you got any questions? No.
Okay. Well, y'all got my number if you need help with your work today, okay?
Chess has
All
a
right.
question.
Where are we?
We'll see you Wednesday, okay?
Miss Smith,
Yes.
where are we?
We stopped at,
No, you start there. About the same.
stop your nonsense at the bottom of page 52.
It's 52.
Right here.
Okay?
Right there.
Okay, we got it.
All right. Well, we'll see you Wednesday if y'all can be here at 9 o'clock, okay?
Okay.
All right.